All right, so we're going to be talking about medical and legal issues tonight. Um, what do you guys think of when you hear medical and legal issues? Good, bad, bad, mostly. Okay. Anybody think, oh yeah, that's a good thing? Okay. So, legal issues, legal concepts are meant to protect your patient, and to ensure that you're doing everything the way you should be doing it. Hate new computers. There we go. So when we're talking about medical and legal issues, basically we're talking about things that are meant to keep you protected, keep your patient protected, and to keep the hospital, keep everybody basically protected from making mistakes. Um, all right. Coming on.
Hey, Jim, did you mute it?
I lost sound too, Rudy.
Muted. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yep,
I can hear you
leave it,
now.
Charlie.
Yeah.
All right, not sure how that got muted, but somehow we got our audio muted. Oh, now I got to figure out where I was again. Okay. So standard care, all that stuff is kind of intertwined with each other. We're going to give a synopsis, or yeah, it's supposed to be synopsis of concepts of patient consent, refusal, and of care, and the ethical challenges that rise from EMT work. We're going to outline the concepts associated with legal issues that affect EMTs. And that's pretty much it. Pretty standard. If you notice in your book, they've got a lot of subcategories underneath there to think about, and we're going to cover through all those. This thing is just yeah.
Quick PowerPoint. Like Like where it says objectives, just put it finger.
Yeah.
Try to use your clicker.
Make sure we don't mute it again. Nope. That's it. Okay. All right, so scope of practice. Scope of practice, basically is a set of regulations, ethical considerations that define the scope and extent and the limits of the EMT's job. So at the beginning of this course, we gave you 3 scopes practices that we had. One was chapter 17, which is Wyoming legislation that governs how we operate. The other one was the state scope of practice, which defines how you can practice. And then the other one was the national scope of practice. So you take all those into consideration, that's what you're allowed to do as an EMT. When we're talking about standard of care, it's the minimum standard of care that you give to a patient that is expected. So anybody with similar training should be able to provide the care that the patient is expected to receive. Does that make sense? Okay. It's regulated by its national scope of practice, state legislation, and state scope of practice. So all that stuff you have in your drive, also in your folder. So it's kind of your responsibility to kind of look through those things, make sure you understand them. More so when you go out onto the road. But also when you're looking at the tests and stuff that were taken, some of that information carries over to that. You know, when you're taking a test and it says you perform an IV and start morphine, okay, you can't do that as an EMT. So you know that you have either a higher level of care with you or they're asking you to do something that's not ethical. Okay, types of consent. Move into that. So there are 4 types of consent. You'll find that on pages 83. You got express consent. So it's basically you're coming up to the patient and saying, Abigail, my name is Jim, I'm a paramedic, can I treat you? All right, she shakes her head, no, I'm not out of there, but I'm gonna say, well, why'd you call us? Now I'm gonna start asking her questions, just start getting out what's going on. Hopefully, if she needs medical treatment, she would then consent to treatment. Children, the mentally incompetent adults, you have what's called in loco parentis. Basically means in lieu of parents. In this case, you're going to treat that person as if the parents consented. Most of the time, you're going to try and get the parents' consent before you treat them, or the guardian's consent before you treat them. The reason is because there are certain things that can happen if you treat someone against their consent, or a child or a mentally incompetent person, if you treat them against the wishes of the guardians. Okay.
You run into this a lot with your school age. You respond to the school because the school nurse called. Well, the school nurse has an in loco parentis. Prior to the school year starting, you parents sign paperwork that says, if something happens, then yes, treat my child. So it's very similar to that.
Yep. Implied consent. Implied consent is what we use for someone who is incapable of making the decision. Either they're unconscious or they're showing that they are incapable of making a rational decision, even though normally they would be able to. Someone with a head injury can't tell us date, time, who they are, what happened. There's a certain amount of that once we get to it, we understand, yeah, we're going to treat this person. And what implied consent does is if that patient was able to consent, we would expect that they would consent to our treatment. Misuse a lot. Cardiac arrest, people are found unconscious. We're gonna start treating them, assuming they want that treatment. And the last one's involuntary transport. This happens a lot with the mentally ill who are either a threat to themselves or a threat to others. There's some going on, they may be fighting with police, whatever's going on that we need to treat them. They go involuntary because they are unable to make that decision and still do it in a safe, rational manner. Okay. These people are alert, oriented. They're just not making the right decisions for us to leave them behind. Okay. Refusals. Every patient who is sound mind, sound judgment is able to refuse treatment. If they are legally able to consent, so a child is not legally able to consent, must be alert and oriented, must be fully informed of the risk of them refusing. So just because someone says, hey, I don't want to go with you, I don't want you touching me, you then have to say, well, you're just in a one vehicle rollover, you were ejected, your bone's sticking out of your arm, there's a possibility you could die if you don't get treated. You have to give them the full explanation of what could happen to them if they're not seen. And the patient will be asked to sign a release form. They do not have to sign it, they can refuse to sign it. In that case, you're going to put patient refused to sign, and you're going to have someone other than your partner sign that they witnessed that other person refusing. More than likely law enforcement, fire department, something like that. Okay. Any questions over consent or refusal?
You ever had a policeman like that? Like where they're really hurt and refused?
Oh, yeah. And they've come into the ER a few minutes later, so. In fact, one patient left scene, went straight to the ER, they actually beat us up to the ER.
Gave them a couple thousand.
Yeah. And that is always something that you can explain to them too, it's part of thing. A lot of times if we'll go to calls where there's 5 people in the house, they have vehicles that run, you know they run because you see these people driving around town all the time. They're not injured enough that they require an ambulance. We will always say, you're more than welcome to go with us and we will transport you to a hospital. But if you want to go by private vehicle, you're welcome to go by private vehicle too. We will never tell someone we won't transport. All right. Okay, more quick for both.
Is it the page down?
I have no idea. Oh, yeah. All right. Patient consent and refusal continued. Consequences of not obtaining consent. Criminal charges. If you touch someone and angry, insolent. That's not it. Ready? What's the thing for assault?
If you touch somebody in a rude or insolent manner, that would be unlawful touching, which is battery.
So assault is you make threats against the person, but you don't touch it. Battery, you touch the person. So we cannot threaten the people to go in. We can't, if we touch them and force them to go in, or we touch them and they say, hey, don't touch me. Okay, we're backing off at that point. If we continue to do an assessment on someone who's telling us they don't want to be touched, that is considered battery. If we take them into the ER and they said they didn't want to go to the ER, and they're, again, in those state of minds that legally able to refuse, alert oriented, person, place, time, and events, and are, for the most part, there's no reason for why they couldn't refuse our care. And we take them anyways, that's kidnapping. So that's why when we go to a house and the patient says, I don't want to go with you, and the family says, you're going with him. No, he's not. You know, we'll help you get him into their car and you can take him to the ER and kidnap him, but we cannot force him to go. Okay. There's also civil liability in that. When you look in your books on this next page. Where is tort civil liability? I know it's in here. So you got a couple of different types of liability. You got tort and I think it's just tort.
91.
Yep, tort. 91, so we got civil, not criminal offense and action injury caused by negligence. So that's usually if you do something that one is outside your scope. You can be charged civilly and possibly criminally for practicing without a license. If you do something that you're allowed to do, but you do it wrong, you can be charged with negligence. If you leave a patient behind, you could be, and they needed to go, you could be civilly charged with negligence also. So negligence you can be charged with for doing above your scope or not doing what is expected, not following that standard of care. All right. Next. It's gonna be a lot. So, special considerations. So in the state of Wyoming, we do what's called the POST agreement. Yes, so then. Yeah, I'm gonna have JJ explain this because she did an entire workup on this.
So your Wyoming Pulse was actually created in Washington. There was a doctor that created this document for, and it is nationwide. Each state might have their own curriculum for it. So ours may not look the same as for Washington. But for the most part, this document says, my dad is 86 years old. When the time comes, his heart stops, he's not breathing. He doesn't want CPR. He doesn't want to be intubated. So then it's a DNR, DNI. He doesn't want us beating on his chest. He doesn't want tubes in his throat. Or there's special considerations. He's okay if you intubate him as long as it's only for a short time. He's okay that you give him antibiotics. So he's super sick. He's got sepsis. A whole body infection. So he's okay if you go ahead and give him antibiotics and treatment. He doesn't want to be with it. But then it becomes the specific criteria, the specific treatments that he does or does not want. This is a document that is only done with the doctor. This is not something that I can give to you and say, here you go, fill this out. This has to be a discussion with your doctor. You should talk to your family about this. Make sure that they're on board. If my dad is of sound mind and he says, no, don't do anything, just let it go. There's a box on here that you check with his initials and it can't be changed. So you go in because I called 911, my dad's not breathing and his heart has stopped. So then I called 911 because I'm gonna panic. They come in, She has this, but she wants you to do everything with me. What are you gonna do? Legally, you don't have to do anything. Talk to the daughter, talk to the family members, it's not always the daughter. And let them know, this is what dad wanted, do you really want us to crush his chest, put a tube down his throat? Your dad signed this and that is legally binding, you do not have to do it. But then you get into the ethical and the family freaking out and it's just a nightmare, it sucks. So you do the best that you can, you get him out to your truck, and then you call medical control. Cause he ultimately, your doctor is gonna be the one that ultimately says. Just stop, okay? So box A is the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. That's where, yes, you can attempt. Or no, don't touch me. If they want medical for section B, if they want medical interventions, they can do full treatment, do anything and everything, save my life. I want back. We have one patient that is 92 years old. She has cancer, she has COPD, all the stuff and things. And in my brain, I'm like, why do you want me to do this to you? Because this is brutal. Or you could have selective. You can transfer me and that's it. Or comfort focused therapy. You can give me oxygen. You can give me breathing treatments. You can give me antibiotics. But if it's not gonna work, if it's not gonna save my life, then no. This is the one that kinda makes me question WTF just because oxygen is a medication. But on the other hand, it's also gonna make you more comfortable. So am I prolonging the inevitable or am I keeping you comfort? It's a tough one. Box C, if they want to have or not have a feeding tube. E is that box I was talking about. They initial that. They are of sound mind. The doctor has discussed with them all the pros and cons, the specifics or the unspecifics, whatever it is that they want. They discussed it with the patient. Maybe the patient is an Alzheimer's. So then it becomes up to the children. When it's the children, then you won't initial that box. Because it was not the patient themselves that said. And then your primary patient or primary healthcare giver or legal guardian sign the form. There's more stuff on the back of it, and that just kind of explains what each box means. That makes sense? There is no black and white. This one is tough. This one sucks, and it's a constant battle. We get this a lot when we go to the nursing home. They call us and they almost always put the pulse form in the documentation that they send us with, the face sheet, the medications, allergies. And then there's a pulse and it says DNR, DNI, do not do anything. They're comfort care. Okay, well, at the nursing home, they cannot give the patient pain medications. The patient fell, he's got an obvious hip fracture, he's gonna be in pain. We have to transport him because they can't initiate the pain therapy. But at the same time, it says do not transport. So you have to get through that fine line and be like, okay, they can't do this, only we can, and we have to do it in the hospital setting. So you do have that gray that you have to fight through. There's just no black and white. Make sense? No, don't.
So the big thing on this one is this is not hospice care. Okay. If they have a cold or they fell and hurt their leg, that has nothing to do with this. Okay. You can still transport them to get them the care they need to fix that because it's not a life-threatening condition. And that's the big difference. And where we run into a lot of problems especially on the medical side, is people don't understand that. This is just, the only thing this has to do with is right down here in D, there's a medical condition there. They have cancer, they have whatever terminal illness that has put them on this DNR. Yeah, it says do not attempt to resuscitate, comfort measures only. That only has to do with if they are dying right now. If they are not in the throes of dying right now, then we treat them, we transport. Okay. The other thing is we have to see this. So at the assisted living home that my mom lived in, they kept this information and a list of their medications, their medical history and all that, allergies in the freezer. But all the emergency services that ran that county knew that's where it was kept. A lot of times people who have this that are bedridden will have it taped to their bed. Some people will magnet it
Stick it to the fridge.
yeah, stick it to the fridge. So where we run into issue with this is if box E is initialed, that means they were of sound mind when they did this. The patient themselves is the only one that can revoke this. Okay. Now, if it's not signed, someone with power of attorney, medical power of attorney, can say, yeah, I want to go ahead and have everything done. If they don't have medical power of attorney, then call medical direction and find out what's going on. If that's initialed and the family's saying, I want everything done, and you bring them back, that person can now sue you for violating the DNR. So at that point in time, we're going to say it's signed, it's initialed, there is nothing we can do. At that point, and we're talking about someone that's usually cardiac arrest is going on, or they're in agonal breathing. And we just all went through that BLS course not too long ago, except for Stacy, but she's been through it before, so she knows what agonal breathing is. So, they're in the throes of death. We're now going to abide by this. There.
How do you know when you go to someone's house if they have one of those or not?
So one aspect we'll ask, does the patient have a pulse or a DNR? The issue is they have to give us that. The daughter or the family member says, yeah, he has one, he's a DNR, DNI, but they don't have it, then we don't have it. So we have to do everything that we can do.
Yeah. So that's why I said, when these are issued to the family, they're told to put them in a place that it's readily available. That's why I said most like cancer patients that are bedridden, they'll have their family members tape it to their headboard or to the wall above their bed. Put it on the fridge. Like I said, with my mom's place, my mom lived, all that information was kept in the freezer. And everybody, all emergency services knew that they came on scene, the person was down, they would start treating the patient, but one of their guys would go check the freezer immediately. When my mom had her stroke, that was my sister was the one that found her. She said it was so weird because the medics came in. They looked at her. One of them went right to the freezer and pulled out her paperwork, and she had a DNR.
A lot of the senior centers, they used to have them taped on the back of the doors.
Yep.
And then there was an issue with patient confidentiality and people were getting into their apartments, and so some of them have them, some of them don't.
And you always hear about, we used to have a lady down at Riverside Plaza that had a piece of copy paper with DNR written on it. Legal or not legal? Not legal.
Doctor.
Yep. Just people will have DNR printed across their chest I actually saw one guy that has "do not resuscitate" tattooed on his chest. It's not a legal thing. If we do nothing, we're negligent. Because it's not a binding agreement, even though this guy had it permanently put on his chest, he may have changed his mind at some point in time. And just got it removed. So this is one of those pieces of paperwork that if it's signed and initialed, it's gonna save your butt if you don't do anything. So. Any questions on the DNR?
That's the same thing with the bracelets.
Yeah, so there is a medical DNR bracelet that you can get. The only way you can get it is if you have a prescription from the doc saying that you can get it. Like if you're diabetic, you can go on, I think it's Wyoming Public Health and get one.
There's a lot of places that have them.
Yeah, you can get them in Shadows, I believe.
Oh, you can get them on Amazon now.
Yeah, but the DNR ones you have to have a prescription to get it. And it's got a little flappy thing that you can put what your wishes are. So if you only want partial of that, you can put that in there. And
Now,
This-
there are the cases where we've been in there, they don't have the paperwork. They call, or the family is on scene and they're like, the paperwork is on file. So when you call into your medical director, they can look it up on the computer system, and if they see it, then they can tell us, yes, we have an active DNR, you can stop.
Cause that's all scanned into the chart.
yep.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Okay. Which one did you press down?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so other legal issues. Negligence, we talked a little bit about that. I believe there's a definition on. Let's see. 92. 98. 90, okay. Page 90, negligence, finding that there was failure to act properly in a situation in which there was a duty to act that needed care that would have reasonably been expected of an EMT, but the EMT was not provided and harm was caused to the patient as a result. So what's that mean? You will cover duty to act, first of all. Once you get out of this class, you feel you have a duty to act on every emergency you see. No, you don't. The only time you have a duty to act is if you are on duty. So working as an EMT. So that means if you're driving down the the interstate, and you watch a one vehicle rollover, you have the duty to act on it. If you're off duty. No, you don't. Will you probably stop and check on them? Yeah. Now. You stop and check on them, you go up and you start treating them. Do you have a duty to act? Yes. Once you start treatment, you now have a duty to act. So there are some people in the medical field who have nothing on their cars identifying them as medical personnel, and they will not stop at a wreck. If they see someone keel over in the grocery store, they'll just go call 911. They're not gonna do anything. Ethically. Right or wrong? Is it? No, no. You don't have a duty to act, so if you
You didn't say
choose,
duty, you said ethically.
right, but you don't have the duty to act, so therefore. Not doing anything isn't necessarily ethically wrong, this is a gray area. For you, I mean, it's gonna come down to what type of person are you? Are you gonna jump in and help out, or are you gonna? Just go call 911, be a silent observer. This goes the same for every. Okay, go ahead.
So with, obviously we have different jurisdictions in Cheyenne Hospital and up here, so if you're outside of your area, you see something like that happen and you're saying you begin for Douglas, but you can't do something like that, Cheyenne, can that get a person in legal, trouble if they do something like that outside of their, jurisdiction?
Are you on duty or off duty? Off duty. So you have, when you come out of here 10 years ago, yes. There are differences between being an EMT and in Commerce County and being an EMT in Niobrara County or anywhere else. When you get now, you get what's called a state licensure. You can go anywhere in the state and practice as an EMT. Okay. It used to be if you worked for Casper Hospital, Douglas Hospital, and Wheatland Hospital, you had to have 3 individual EMT cards because it was a certification. You were certified to work in Casper, you were certified to work here, you're certified to work at Plaquemine. Now, though, they've gone to a licensure system. So I can work here, Casper, Wheatland, and have just 1 license. So, yeah, there is nothing that's going to get you in trouble for practicing down there if you start helping and treating, as long as you don't go beyond your scope of practice. Okay, your scope of practice tells you what you can do. So as long as you stay within those, you're fine. That make sense?
Yep.
All right.
So what if you're nationally registered, but you work in the state of Wyoming?
So here's some, what's National Registry do for you? Does it allow you to practice medicine? No, no. National Registry is just a registration saying you've gone through all this training and have learned to the scope of practice of an EMT. And now what that does is if a state recognizes National Registry, such as I think there's 38 states that 38 or 39 states that currently use National Registry as their standard, if you will. All of them use the national scope of practice, but only 38 or 39 of them recognize National Registry as that's their testing model for you to get licensed in their state. So if I wanted to work here, but I also wanted to work down in Colorado, I'd go down to Colorado, show them my National Registry card, and get registered as an EMT or paramedic, whatever your level is, by showing them that National Registry card. That's why once you get done with this class, keep your National Registry up. It's pretty easy to do. It's just, I mean, you don't even have to be affiliated with the service. Get online, get some CMEs. We have right now, we got Rudy, Pat, and Casey. They're currently online. And what they're doing is they're getting CMEs for this class. That way they can keep up on their certifications. Okay. Any questions?
And that's 30 hours every 2 years.
I don't know. I'd have to look again. I think it's something like that. It's different for each level, so. Yeah, Lane, you have a question or?
No,
Okay, just twirl me then. All right. I got it. Okay. Any other questions?
So if you leave the state, you should not.
If you leave this, if you leave the state and you stop and help somebody, you're still held under that standard of don't go beyond your scope of practice. You're not gonna get in trouble for practicing medicine unless you go outside your scope, anywhere in the nation. That EMT just allows you to practice medicine in the state of Wyoming. Unless you're carrying a whole bunch of shit with you in your truck that you carry on an ambulance, what are you gonna be able to do for the person? CPR, basic first aid, that's stuff that anybody can do. And at that point in time, as long as you don't go into like putting a nasal trumpet down them or an oropharyngeal or pulling out your oxygen tank from your back seat and putting them on oxygen, as long as you don't do any of that, you're covered by Good Samaritan laws once you go outside the state. And we'll get into the Good Samaritan laws, I believe. Yep, next. So that's a good segue into that. So Good Samaritan laws. Good Samaritan laws were set up to help protect people as long as they did what a reasonable person would do under the circumstances. So car flips in front of you, you go up to it, it catches fire, you break the window out, you pull the door off using your Hulk strength, and you drag the person out, and while you're dragging the person out, they suffer a spinal injury. They're now paralyzed. Happens, okay? But I will say that, oh, we'll just leave it at that. It happens, okay? And now they sue you because they said they would rather be dead than paralyzed. Would you have known that at the time? No. Would a normal person want to be alive rather than dead? Yeah. So you're protected under those laws, and unless you're in what's called the Golden Triangle, the lawsuits down in California, more than likely it'll get dismissed. Okay, you might have to go to court on it, but really, all you have to prove is you did what any reasonable person would have done. And always go with the jury trial. Yeah. Because most people will be sitting there going, yeah. If I saw that, I would want to save them. I don't want to watch them burn alive. So, yeah. So Good Samaritan laws are out there. We've already talked about HIPAA, but it's good to come back to it. What does HIPAA do? Right. So HIPAA is see if I can find it. 93. Yep, HIPAA. Health Insurance Portability, Accountability and Accountability Act. So originally, what HIPAA was brought up for was a lot of times people would have a doctor, or the doctor would go out of business or leave their practice. And you go in, you know, they're leaving and say, well, I want to get my health records. And they say, no, those are private. What this law was built to do was to allow you to take your information and move it to someone else and be able to take your, I mean, it says right in it, Portability and Accountability Act. So it was to allow you to move your records around. So what it's turned into is that there's rules that basically have manifested into that to where it's to protect your privacy also. So if I go help John Doe out on the street, bring him in, I can't come up to Stacy and say, hey, you know, John Doe, I just picked him up. Because does she need to know what John Doe's situation is? No. So it's really gone beyond that. One of the things we run into, and I used to have the section marked down, but there is a section in there where you can share information with law enforcement. Okay. It's a tricky area, but as long as it's an active investigation, and they come up and say, hey, did you smell alcohol? You can tell them, yeah, I smelled alcohol. What you can't say is that, oh yeah, he was in there telling me he went to a party, just got out of a party and drank about 2 kegs of beer while he was there. You can't share that information because that information has to do with treatment. And you can't share treatment information. What you see, smell, feel in your senses that you identified and he didn't directly tell you, you can share that with law enforcement. And I'm not sure, Rudy, do you know what the time limit on that is? Just think it was like, has to be an active investigation, so like within.
Yeah, I don't know the whole time frame off the top of my head. Usually, if it's an active crime scene, um, you know, but we also have other ways of going around it, like we can always subpoena medical records, search warrants, things like that. Um, but yeah, during the active investigation, it's like, yeah, I smell alcohol. It's like, cool, that correlates with all the beer bottles I found in the car. So
Yeah. And a lot of the officers in here in Douglas, they might ask you if you smell alcohol, but they're not gonna really delve into it unless they're fairly new. Or just like, there's a lot of them do good work, legwork on finding the information themselves. Plus, they're going to do their investigation. So usually what I've always been told is once patient is dropped off the hospital and that officer comes in and leaves the hospital, it's now no longer an active investigation. Still is an active investigation, but once they leave the hospital, if they haven't asked you anything and they find you down at the hall, then it becomes a little more of a gray area. I'd probably steer them into subpoenaing the records and stuff like that. So,
A lot of times if we have a patient in the back of a truck and we don't know what's going on, we'll say, any drugs, any alcohol. They don't trust law enforcement. Well, a lot of times we don't necessarily, because we don't wear the uniforms, but we're similar to law enforcement. So then they look at us like, well, I ain't telling you nothing, because then you're gonna tell them. We can't. If you're telling me, I'm asking you a specific question so that I can treat you properly. So now I cannot go and tell. Does that make sense?
You
yeah,
can't go and tell, but if the police officer asked you,
you.
did they say that
Nope.
there was drugs and alcohol, you still can't answer.
That is, but I used those questions to treat my patient.
Okay,
Yeah, if it's part of your treatment, you can no longer share it with law enforcement. Okay. What you
and
can,
also in terms of law enforcement going back into that, there is a rule on hearsay as it comes to criminal law and what I can bring into court. Obviously, it can help me, steer my investigation, but to say to somebody, "Hey, what did this person say?" That's going to get thrown out of court.
there was a case a few years ago, and this was many years ago. Before. Y'all was. 1999, 98 timeframe. Where one of our deputies was involved in a wreck. End up killing. Female. Seriously injuring the male. The medic that was in the back of the truck. Asked him if they'd been drinking. The guy admitted that he'd been drinking and that he was driving. She told law enforcement. And because she told law enforcement, that case got dismissed. She got lucky, she got to keep her job, but back then they weren't as much in the fining and doing stuff on punishing people for HIPAA violations. But because of that, the defense attorney used the fact that she went to law enforcement and told them that that was enough, that because that is what they based their investigation on. And so they went after it solely based on that. Well, not solely based on it. There's other mitigating factors, but because they used that in a statement saying, because of this, we did this, that whole case got thrown out. And in reality, the deputy was on the right side of the road that he should have been on. He had his lights and sirens going. They came up over on his side of the road and hit him on a hill. So They were in the wrong, he should have gotten charged. But the whole case got thrown out because of that HIPAA violation. So it is a real thing. Alright, so that being said, anything you see here on this service while you're doing your ride time is between you and the medics you work with. Okay. We in class don't need to hear about what you saw. Okay. If we were the medics on it, we know what we can share about from the call, if it's a good call or something that we can learn from. We know what we can share, we'll share it. Okay. If it's something that's bad enough that it affects you, let the medics that you're working with or us know about it, so we can get you counseling that you need, or at least steer you in the direction. You will see stuff in this job that is not necessarily kosher to be keeping in your brain very well.
Keep in mind, a lot of the calls that, not a lot, some of the wrecks that we go on, the driver that walked away is drunk as fuck. Drunk as drunk. I know, it was too late.
Yeah.
But he killed the family in the other vehicle. This call is no joke. And if it doesn't affect you, something is wrong with you. We expect it to. It affects us. We still have nightmares. If any of us tell you we don't have PTSD, we're blowing smoke up your butt. It's just part of the job. If you can't figure out how to deal with it and you need help, don't be ashamed of that. And that's me also talking to myself, because we see a lot of stuff. Okay?
Alright. That being said. Alright, we still got a few minutes before the time we actually started.
Take a break.
Alright, yeah, we'll take a 10-minute break. Come back and we'll get back started. Hey, actually figured it out. Yeah, I was scared when first started, man. I was going by way too quickly. Thought I was gonna get you guys out of here in an hour. You go on a fire call?
No, I can't until the first.
Doesn't sound like that other one.
Hmm,
That other one didn't go very well.
two vehicle crash.
Mhm. You're making a mess.
I know. I'll pick it up. Throw it into my good ones. Just gotta make sure I don't throw it in with the good ones. It's too busy trying to get stuff set up. And get things to eat.
They were for the bad food, but we need free day. Well, something, it didn't work, so. Does it? Did we make bags for the additional students?
Hmm.
So everybody has all their paperwork and
No, we gotta get Dylan and them theirs, but they're back there.
you say, I know Dylan had a bag.
Dylan had a bag?
Yeah, we made.
Oh. Yeah, it's probably. No, it was back to back there. I don't know. I don't know what Cher did with them. She had them laid out, so.
It came out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
We knew it was going to sometime this year. Dylan's would be on his bag on the sticker. The tag. Never mind. The one right there. Yeah. There was tags on all the bags. I'll ask them when they come back in. I know there should be one coming up this year. And we were like right on the borderline as far as when it was gonna come out.
Yeah, so our edition 15 came out the end of December.
But we ordered your books before. Hmm. I'm saying, I'll book one, change. You need the Heimlich?
No, it's stuck in my esophagus and I'm not sure yet.
Taking a drink, folks, I did.
I'm Kate. I'm Charity. Okay, nice to meet you. You got a bag in you, right? Yeah. Yes, I did. Your folder and your folder of work.
Yeah,
I don't know what folder. You know that folder. But it can be in there. Before you get in there.
Are we putting this back?
yeah, you can keep them.
Until now. You're in my.
Yeah, did you get a bag?
I believe that, here.
Yeah, and Dylan got his.
Yep. Assume I can just sign these and.
Yeah. Just read through them, kind of.
Here, hold it. And I'll go back there. I'll bring it back. But yes, the other previous captives. So that.
Did you have fun in Casper?
Oh, I'm overjoyed. Just keep rolling with that, so. Keep going. 3, 4.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when we do firearms, right? You said belt and shoes and match, so do you have to have skills of our belt?
No.
No.
No, other than that one, that's fine, just they have to look professional. Okay. No. They have to be black or navy blue, I don't care which one. But, no rips, no stains, look professional.
Are you on slide 6?
7,
Oh, there's 9 slides?
12.
Oh. It's a page, yeah.
Two of them are question slides. So,
Regular question. What kind of loss do you have though? Like, do they have to be like steel toe or anything?
Does it feel like just 20 soles close?
Close shoes, yeah, close to code. Preferably not. So. She's wearing tennis shoes. Technically. I wouldn't wear tennis shoes to that. We're not gonna make you go out and buy a certain type of boot to use, you know, 24 hours and.
Right.
and- yeah.
Blood.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to make sure it's preferably leather or a solid.
But that's the question.
Hmm.
She said how much longer, how much longer they have, and I said, you can.
You have, no, we gotta cover wild bowl and all that stuff.
Yeah, are you on Good Samaritan already?
Mhm.
You've already done it?
So the question was, obviously I haven't been here, so if I'm repeating something he said or whatever. Deal with it. The question was, what if you come upon a wreck? And that person has a DNR, but you don't know about it?
First of all, you're gonna fall under the Good Samaritan law. You don't know about it. Second of all, I have a rule of thumb, if it happens in front of me, I might stop, depending on what is happening, most likely will stop. And I will call it in. When I get to those people, not one time will I mention I'm in the medical field. Because then I'll fall underneath the Good Samaritan Act, right? The second you say you're in the medical field, you are now responsible for that patient until somebody of higher care comes along. Equal or higher. Right? I'm just a human. Here to help you. What do you need? Right? The other thing is if it happens behind me, I will not turn around, especially if it's on, well, if it's on the interstate. If it's in town, that's different. You turning around on the interstate risks having another incident happen. So call it in. If you see it happen behind you, call it in, give your mile marker, tell them it was behind you, you saw it in the rearview mirror, whatever. But don't risk your life to turn around on the interstate to go back and help. Now, if you have an exit and you want to take the exit, you want to go around that way and whatever, that's on you. I'm probably not gonna do that.
There's a baby being born, you're hitting the gas.
Girl, I ain't even going, I'm calling JJ. I'm not even going.
I have another question. So if
So
my,
did that answer your question?
I just want that thing.
Oh, okay, so the answer to your question is, you're gonna fall under the Good Samaritan Act as long as you don't mention that you're in the medical field, none whatsoever. The second you say I'm in the medical field, now you're now responsible for that patient until somebody of equal or higher care comes along. You've now put yourself in a position to be sued if something bad happens. With that being said, you're never gonna know if somebody has a DNR unless it's taped to their windshield. So you're going to do all of the things you know to do, regardless if that person that you came upon at a wreck has a DNR or not. Right? You guys can do whatever you want when you get out there. You can say, I'm an EMT. I do not care. I never will I ever say I'm a paramedic. Personal preference.
Mhm.
But no, before, just in case we get kicked out. Cherry. Dylan, Austin, right?
So, you'll be here tomorrow. Just find out the delayed in Denver. Or, well, into Denver. From where it was coming from.
So in your folders, you guys should have got backpacks, right? So clean out, make sure those backpacks are with you every night, because you never know when we're doing skills and we need all the supplies and stuff and things. There's a calendar, a schedule in your bag, in your folder. You are responsible for the previous class, which luckily for you, it was just one night. Test one will open on Wednesday night. So. just
What?
you're prepared.
Thursday morning at 8.
I did it Wednesday night.
What? Girl, you can't change it up. I get confused.
All right.
Like, I can go in and change it, so go right ahead.
All right, let's get back into this. All right. So all that being said, we're gonna talk about some things that can also get you in trouble. So libel, it's making a false, injurious information in written form, slander, false, injurious information stated verbally. So what's that mean? You really libel is kind of hard to, or slander is kind of hard to do in our field, because you gotta tell somebody information about that patient that causes injury either to their reputation or to them personally. Okay. For the most part, we're not gonna do that. Written form, on the other hand, is very easy to do if you're let's say a vengeful person, you're treating someone you don't like, and you put in the report, this person is a hopeless alcoholic and will never amount to anything. I mean, if you do that, that's bad report writing to begin with. We don't make assumptions on someone. Even if we know that they drink 3 pints a day, they admit to drinking 3 pints a day, we never call them an alcoholic. Okay. Say a person states, if they say, yeah, I'm an alcoholic and I'm going through withdrawals. Patient states that they have a dependency on alcohol and possibly are going through withdrawals. Okay. Big difference in stating it that way than saying the guy's an alcoholic and is going through the DTs. Yeah. Just be careful what you say, what you write. Facebook is a detriment to just about every emergency service out there. Because you can say stuff or write stuff on those on the platforms that are out there that will get you in trouble. People have lost their jobs because of what they've written and stated on Facebook and have been sued for libel and slander on both Facebook and TikTok. So be careful about what you're saying out there. Medical identification bracelets, if you look on. Yeah. 94. What's the?
Yep, 94.
94, you'll see some examples of them down there. The big ones are allergies, anaphylaxis to nuts, bees, stuff like that. So if they have severe allergy, you'll often find either a bracelet, necklace. There's a program out there that I was listening to about, it's an app that you can put on your phone where people can get on it and it's, I think ID Me or something like that. You press on it and it'll give you that person's medical history, allergies, medication list, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different things out there. And this is one of those things where if you see a tattoo on someone's wrist that says deathly allergic to nuts or diabetic, yeah, you can listen to this tattoo because more than likely that's what they've got. They want you to know it so that if they're unconscious and their bracelet fell off, they want you to know what's going on. I got a buddy that says allergic to peanuts tattooed across his forearm because he wants people to know that, and he's bad enough that if he gets into the dust of peanuts, he will have an anaphylactic reaction. So he knows that, jokes around about it. But he's also got tattooed on his arm so that you know if you see him and he's swollen up like a balloon that, hey, it's probably been around nuts. So organ donors. 2 times we will keep people alive, even when we don't think there's hope of it, is if there are organ donors, we'll try to keep them, keep doing CPR on them until we get them to the ER and turn it over to them. Then they call the guys that come in and harvest the organs. The other one is pregnant females. If we think there's a good chance the fetus is still alive. If she's in rigor, the fetus is in rigor. So we're not gonna bother with CPR at that point. But if she's warm, just dropped, we're not getting any effect back with stuff, we will still continue CPR till we get her to the ER and they can do an ultrasound on her and confirm whether or not the baby's still alive or not. Safe haven laws, one of the laws that I really have an issue with. So anybody know what the safe haven laws are? Hmm?
Surrender baby.
Yeah, and where can you do that?
Station.
Fire station, police station, ambulance halts. In some cases, people just come by and they drop the babies off. They don't knock on the door. They don't make sure the baby's taken care of before they leave. They just drop them off. What happens if they drop them off here at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night and we don't get calls? Yeah, child's dead. Cause we are not gonna show up until someone gets a call. Or, I don't know, Elena might be part of the young kid mafia that hangs out here. Yeah, there's some of them that, I know Bridger is. He's probably the leader of it. So they come down, play pool, stuff like that here. So, yeah, they might find them, but yeah. The other thing is they can drop them off at EMS halls. We do have building back. But we're rarely there. Maybe in the morning. If it'd been this morning, nobody would have been there because they were all hiding over here watching TV. Where it's warm. So yeah, safe haven laws, I have an issue with.
But it can be a child too, right? Not just an
It can be, yeah, it can be actually infant, child, or an incompetent adult.
Oh,
In some states, not every state has that. I think Wyoming just is infant children. And it's like, there's a certain age group. Once they're over like 2 or 3, I think, is the cutoff. They can no longer be dropped off at that point, their years, so.
Does the fire station have like one of the baby drop boxes? No.
No, because we're a volunteer station. Who knows when that drop off check, we might go 2 or 3 days without a call and nobody come down. So yeah, we don't have a drop box for babies. They do, a lot of the larger departments have a little carriage thing that you can put them in, turn it around, and it. When you turn it around, it alerts the firefighters in the station that someone just dropped something off. So they'll go check it. But yeah, yeah. So safe haven laws. Just know those. Did I stick around here too long? I'm gonna mute it again. Oh. Ow.
What are laws like that?
Because it does protect volunteer agencies. Basically, it has to be manned station. From what I've read on them, so. All right, there we go, crime scenes. This is one Rudy will like. So what is a crime scene?
the location where a crime has been committed or any place where evidence relating to the crime may be found.
Okay. So you go on a overdose call. Crime scene, not crime scene. Great crime scene. You go on unattended death. Crime scene, not crime scene. Yeah. Go on one vehicle rollover. Crime scene, not crime scene. Yeah. See where I'm going with this. As much as you can, you're gonna preserve the evidence. Okay, so what's that mean to us? Law enforcement is highly trained in doing investigations despite fire department interference. Okay, so I am never gonna tell people you wanna try to avoid parking on the tracks that go off the road and to the car that's just rolled over. If you can. There are gonna be times we can't do that. Because of the location of the vehicle, because of the crash, because of whatever happened. There's gonna be times that as EMTs, fire department, neither of the law enforcement, some destruction of the evidence is gonna happen. But we do our best to preserve the evidence in the room. If there's a death in a house and we're going in, and the minute we open the door, we get called to a house, not even necessarily death. We open the door and the minute we look in, there's blood all over the walls and it looks bad. We're gonna pick a side of the wall to go down. We're gonna go down that one side of the wall. We're gonna go one way in, one way out. As much as we can to preserve the evidence. Once we set our bag down, there's a certain amount of evidence that's gonna be transferred onto there. Anything that falls on the floor that we had now is collected potential evidence. So like wrappers of gauze that we use and drop to the ground. Majority of that stuff we leave. The only thing we're taking out with us is going to be our bag and our monitor, the things we need to do our job next. And we might be met at the door or outside the door with people with tape that are going to tape the bottom of the bag and the monitor to collect any evidence that went with us. The same goes to if you go in and the person is between the bed and the wall and you have to move the bed to get to them. Try to remember where that bed was. If you accidentally knock a lamp over or you do something that disturbs that crime scene, let law enforcement know, hey, I moved the lamp. Or hey, found the gun next to him, I moved it up onto a nightstand, it was beside him on the bed. And you're gonna let law enforcement know to the best of your ability what that crime scene looked like when you came into it. There are a lot of calls that we go to that end up being crime scenes that when we're called to them, we don't know they're crime scenes till we're already in them. So once you get in there, you realize what's going on. Call for backup, call for PD. And start remembering, okay, what did I touch? What did I do when I came in? Did I have gloves on when I came in the door? Did I touch the door handle? You know, that's important to know because now your fingerprints are on the door handle. So, you know, just kind of keep that in mind, keep in the back of your head. Again, we try to preserve the crime scene as much as possible. There are going to be times we interfere with that crime scene. It's our job to let guys like Rudy know that, hey, we screwed up your crime scene. This is what it looked like before we went in and destroyed it. Sound good, Rudy? Did you lose me?
Yeah, big thing is just let me know, that way I can document it. But there's a lot of evidence. I'm one of the guys who are trained in crime scenes. So yeah, the big thing is just document, everything that you've done.
Cool. All right, any questions over crime scenes? All right. Special reporting. State of Wyoming, there's only two things you are required by law to report. That's child abuse and elder abuse. Okay. These need to be reported to law enforcement. Other than that, you go on a call, woman tells you she was raped. You can ask her, do you want us to call law enforcement for you? She says no. As far as it goes. Okay. Once she gets into the ER, they're going to ask her the same question. If she refuses, then they may offer her to do a rape kit. That rape kit can be then held. I think the hospital has to hold it for 5 years, 10 years. I'll have to look that up. Anyhow, if the hospital does a SANE exam, even if law enforcement isn't involved, they have to hold it for a certain amount of period. Once that period's over, they destroy it. That gives that person that amount of time to decide whether or not they're going to prosecute or go after the person. Some people never did it. When you figure, I think at one point in time, it was only 30% of rapes are investigated by law enforcement because they're reported. So. What's another one? you guys can think of that we'd want to report but can't. I don't know. So. But if you do not report suspected child abuse or elder abuse, you can face charges.
Domestic abuse either.
Nope. So domestics do not fall under that unless the child is involved. But you can face criminal charges, you know. Yeah,
Both mandatory reporting.
yeah. Any questions on mandatory reporting? Now, I'm not sure if maybe Cher can answer this. Mental special needs people, that's not, does that fall under the child abuse or?
I think it's much the same as geriatric.
Yeah.
And it needs to be reported because they can't advocate for themselves, much like a child or an infant.
Yeah, and I think the geriatric might fall and it might cover both.
Yeah, I want to say geriatrics and mental disabilities fall under oh gosh, I had it in my mind. Vulnerable adult.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and vulnerable adults actually fairly new in the state of Wyoming. When I first started in EMS, the only thing you had to report was child abuse. That was the only mandatory reporting. That's kind of changed over the years, so we're starting to realize that people are taking advantage of these other populations, so. All right, any questions? All right. Okay, other ethical considerations. Or some things that are on your mind ethically, like what you can do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do.
Oh, I wanna beat somebody's ass.
Okay.
But can't,
All right,
like belligerent patients or. When you go on domestics or child abuse. Just the things you see. That you wish you could take care of or. Whatever I'm trying to say. We have parents about,
Vigilante.
there you go, be vigilant, dang right.
yeah, we can't take the law into our own hands. What even sucks more is I've been punched, spat on, kicked by patients. And what I can do back to protect myself is limited because of the perception of the job, not that I can't do it, but should I do it?
With that being said, depending on the situation, we can press charges.
Yeah,
Everyone stops.
so you can press charges against them, that's within your right. I have yet to see anybody in our department press charges on somebody. I have seen it over at the care center.
We recently, a year or two ago, had a situation where we had a patient hit one of our aides and they pressed charges.
And they should, yeah. So yeah, it does, you do have legal rights. So they can't beat you up. Now, here's the difference is we're emergency services. If someone hits a fireman or a police officer, they're charged at a higher level than that you hit us. Now, again, when I was in law enforcement, I got punched quite a bit. And never had the prosecutor go for striking a law enforcement officer. They just went with simple battery. Because they knew the guy would plead guilty to that. Once you get into I don't know, Rudy, is it felony to hit an officer?
Yeah, it's felony if you hit an officer, and it's also a 10-year felony if you disarm an officer. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it all falls under the interference charge.
So you can punch EMTs all day. So just kind of remember that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Okay, there's a lot of gray area in there. I have yelled at patients. I've gotten in the face. I've had law enforcement leave the room because I'm yelling at a patient. I've also had law enforcement suddenly tackle patients because I was yelling at them and they decided they were gonna get froggier, so. You got backup, these guys are good, yeah, Elena.
That would not count for a patient who is, mentally not there, correct?
Right. Yeah, you gotta take in consideration, would I ever press charges against someone who's mentally incapable of making that decision? Probably not. It depends a lot on the situation too. If I'm being good, all of a sudden this guy just flies off the handle on me. He might need charges pressed on him. Just as a wake-up call. But more than likely, I'm not going to. I'm gonna say, okay, that was one. But I'm then going to restrain him somehow. And we'll get into physical restraints and what you're allowed to do as an EMT later on.
So if someone punches you, there's no repercussion at all.
Oh, no, you can file charges against him.
But you have to file it. So if the
Yeah.
police officer's there and he sees this going on, he can't press charges unless you say, I want to press charges.
Not,
Well, not
not
necessarily.
exactly. If there's a misdemeanor that occurs inside my presence, then absolutely, we're going hands on. But if it happens outside of my presence, I'm going to need you to testify to that fact.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to, this is one of those things where you and the officer are gonna be talking about it. Yeah, law enforcement has the ability to file charges against any crime that's committed in front. Okay. I don't know an officer in this town that won't back us up and help us out. They love it when we show up on a medical call. Rudy's one of those guys that if you ever show up on a call with him, he's got his, what is it, vitals and his,
Patient assessment.
OPQRST, yeah, sample history. He'll have all the stuff that you're gonna learn in patient assessment. He'll have it written down and he'll hand it to you. Yeah, he's really good at that. So he's been an EMT, he was an I for a while. So he's got all that knowledge in his head and he's using it. Sherry's the same way. She's very good at getting vitals, getting what you need done and doing a patient handoff to you. So yeah. Other than that, anything else you can think of that might ethically fall into a concern for you now? I mean, when you're,
This patient's trying to keep your ass, you still gotta treat them. You're pissed off over the moon at him and you want to hold on them. Solve the problem right then and there. You know Jim's mad when his lip starts to quiver.
Now, if I get punched, get credited for an extra patient contact for that.
we'll talk about it. So,
I mean, I'm gonna say yes. I don't care what Jim says.
well, it
That was
depends.
an
What'd
awesome
you say to
question.
get punched?
Well, the important thing is getting made contact.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you're having to self-treat. That's additional patient.
Yeah, yeah. well,
We, responded to a call where a drunk driver had struck another vehicle and we had to treat that drunk driver the same as if I was treating you. Difficult. Had to be done. Because at the end of the day, while he made a bad decision and a bad outcome happened, He's still a human being that needed treatment. So it's gonna be hard. You're gonna be like, what in the heck was I doing, wanting to get into EMS and do this type of thing? But at the end of the day, you gotta lay your head down on your pillow and say, I did the right thing. And that's really what is most important.
So in Montana, when like people come out of like seizures or diabetic things like, and they're aggressive, do they restrain, does law enforcement restrain them to the beds like they do in Montana?
We don't unless we absolutely have to for the betterment of the patient, right? Like there are times when we have a diabetic patient that we run on often. And when he gets low enough, he does get a little swingy. We know this. We don't call law enforcement, we just do what we do in order to treat the patient. But we don't restrain them like with soft restraints or have people sit on them or anything like that. And we definitely don't do that with seizure patients.
Unless it's an extreme situation, I never ask law enforcement to restrain my patient. If I have to restrain them, I'm using soft restraints. And we're gonna restrain them to the cot that way. The reason being is once they're in handcuffs, it turns the situation perceptively, not legally, but by perception, it turns it into then they're in custody. And this person might not be in custody. Plus, how many people have been in handcuffs? That's it. Come on, brother. I know you
You
guys.
should have raised both hands on this.
Yeah, so I was in law enforcement for 8 years. Taught custody and control, been in handcuffs hundreds of times. Do they feel comfortable? No. And the issue with handcuffs, they have to be double locked in order to prevent them from tightening up. If they get to a certain point of tightness to where it's impinging because of the small width of the handcuff, it can actually cause nerve damage if they tighten up. Every law enforcement officer knows how to double lock a handcuff. A fighting patient, dealing with them, their arms flailing around, stuff like that. Is it possible to miss that? Yeah. So, I mean, most of our officers are good. Couple of times I've had patients handcuffed because they're in custody in the back of my ambulance. I always have the officer double check them and then I double check it. There's a lot of stuff that we can't do if the patient is handcuffed behind the back. You never put a patient prone on a cot. Okay, that is how people die from in custody death. So they're always on their side or on their back. That being said, if their hands are behind their back, I can't check blood pressure real well. I can't monitor pulses real well. So we got to figure something out. A lot of times we'll have them cuffed in front. A lot of the deputies, I don't know if PD's carrying them now. Almost all the deputies have belly chains. So we'll have them cuffed in front with the belly chain on. And that way they can't like be swinging out of stuff like that. But we can still do blood pressures, we can still do IVs, we can still check pulses and all that good stuff. If the patient's in question as to whether or not they're gonna get frog, and we have to have them cuffed in front, we'll have PD or an SO deputy ride with us. And then either if it's in town here, we can give them a ride back to their car, or one of their buddies can come pick them up and take them back. So that's just some considerations with that. When we go over soft restraints, we will teach you how to properly tie those. Because I can tell you every time I've seen them used at the hospital, they're improperly used. And so we will teach you the correct way. And then next time when y'all that work up the hospital see some nurse putting it on like she knows what she's doing and she's doing it wrong, you say that's not the correct way of doing it. they're gonna slip out of that pretty easy. Or the opposite is it's gonna tighten down and it's gonna cut off circulation turnaround. Both of those are bad things, especially if you need them restrained. So. Any questions over that? Okay. All right, let's see here. We are. Okay, good. Check your learning now. Everybody ready? Hopefully we covered everything, right? Because we didn't last time. All right, what's the difference between scope of practice and standard of care? Means you answer it.
The standard of care is the minimum amount of care required to give for your duty.
Close. So it is the correct definition, but instead of required, expected. So it's the minimum amount of care that you're expected to give to a patient. And what is reasonably expected to be given to that patient by an EMT of the same level as you. Yeah. Have a scope of practice.
That falls underneath the standard of care. It's your use for administration.
Okay, it's basically the rules and regulations and SOPs that determine what you can do. Okay. But good. Good. All right, let's see if I was right. Rules good to define.
The extent of one is of the standard of care. Care expected from this right?
Yeah, I paraphrased it because definitions were too long. So. All right, what does the phrase in loco parentis mean? What was that? In place of the parents, right? So basically, this covers who?
Children.
Yep. So this applies to children and people, adults with mental disability. I really don't like the term mentally incompetent, but basically someone with a mental disorder doesn't allow them to create rational thinking. It's a longer definition, but all right. One or two mandatory reporting issues for the state of Wyoming. And did I do a fourth one? No. Any questions? Yes.
With child abuse, would that fall, when they left all of that?
Yes. So any kind of abuse to a child that can be seen. So you pick someone up and you get called to the school, child's severely malnourished, dirty, doesn't look like he's eaten in a couple of days. That would be child neglect. You go to school to pick up somebody, or someone calls you to the house and you notice bruises that are not normal within children. Okay. You go to a household where the kid's got multiple bruises on his legs, lower legs, front of his lower legs. And they say he's clumsy, he's always running around, running into anything. Child abuse or not child abuse?
No.
No, because that's where kids normally have bruises. If you have a child that's extremely rambunctious and running around all the time, and they don't have bruises on their legs, they're probably in bubble wrap. Now, you get called and the kid has a broken arm. And they say he fell down the stairs.
That's kind of
Suspicious, right? So what do we want to know about?
probably what caused him to fall,
Yeah,
how far he fell. Like how many steps he fell.
start
Was
asking
he working
questions.
before?
What do you do in
Yeah.
a situation like that where like they won't answer any questions and they're like, you can't talk to my kid about it?
No, we transport them and get them treated. So what's gonna happen once we get into the ER? Cause,
Things come out.
well, they're gonna start looking at the child's history. How many times has this kid broken his arm? What kind of break is it? Okay, there's the green stick fracture when they twist the arm and it breaks. Yeah, so there's different types of breaks that can happen. There's a break that's expected from someone falling. And if that break doesn't match that fall, then the doctor's gonna be going, you know, what's the house look like when you go into it? There's a lot of things that you're gonna want to take into consideration when you're doing this, because once you make that claim of child abuse, I mean, that affects both the parents and the child. So you want to make sure if you're filing a child abuse claim, I want to make sure I'm right. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm gonna be the one filing. I'm gonna give my suspicions to the doctor. Doctor's gonna take a look at it. And that's either gonna rise my suspicions, so suspicions I've already given him. Or he's either going to go into it, look at it and go, yeah, it's looking more like child abuse now. Okay, we need to report this. And usually the doctor's gonna be the one to report it. Now, if you go over there, child has burn up to, say mid-arm. And they said, well, he always goes in and starts the bathtub and he had the water on high and he fell into it. Questionable still. I mean, is it? Or it's a baby and they've got burns on both their legs. And they say, well, they just jumped into the bathtub. Yeah, no, that's somebody who took a dead child and dumped him into the bathtub. That's gonna heighten my suspicions of child abuse a lot. So when we go in, I'm gonna let the doc know, hey, because the one thing I'm not gonna do is confront them on scene and say you're abusing your child. Or call law enforcement while I'm there and say they're abusing their child. Because what's that do to my safety? And the safety of the child? Okay. If they're willing to do that to a child, what are they willing to do to you? So I'm gonna get that child out of there. I'm gonna get him into the hospital. Hospital's gonna take them and they're gonna use tactics like, hey, could you guys go down to the admissions, make sure all the information's right while we get your child. So we don't need to have been there while we're prepping our child. They can go out. We can start looking at it. We can do a little more investigation to it in the ER. And the ER is a better place to do it anyways. So yeah, we're gonna get them into the ER, get them treated.
That's something, and then the family, like, oh, wait, no, we don't transport, we were just making sure he's okay. We don't want you to do. But you still kind of usually, once you get out to the ambulance, then you call it on.
And it's best to take the abuser with the child into the ER than it is to leave him in the home with the abuser. So as much as I can, I'm not even gonna let the abuser know I think it's child abuse. So,
I don't have a face for that, so I'm gonna have to take you with me.
Yeah, totally.
That's why I'm an officer.
That's why I started dating for 20 years.
do you have a question? You raised your hand same time she did, so did it get answered?
You laugh.
Yeah, what's the
I was
question?
gonna be funny and then.
All right. Remember, there are no stupid questions unless it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But you can make stupid statements and we'll laugh at you or laugh with you. Yeah.
So I have a scenario for you. So if you think it's child abuse and you go and you tell the doctor, this is what I saw, this is what I think. The doctor doesn't file anything, they don't think it's child abuse. Are you out at that point and you just have to let it go, or
No, you can still report it. You still have an obligation that if you think it is, but what I'd probably do is go to the doctor and find out why he thinks it wasn't. Because as an EMT, even as a paramedic, what I see might be one thing, but then he turns around and goes, well, no, it was this and this and this was the cause. I can tell you when I was in law enforcement, I still think one of my deaths was a suicide. Went down to the autopsy and the state coroner showed me exactly what he thinks happened. I still think it's a murder, but he was able to show me why he thought it was a suicide and it made sense. So,
But so they, but after it is or isn't reported to CPS doesn't have the right to tell you anymore at that point, does it?
We don't report to.
so whatever we do, yeah,
They contact.
So the doctor can tell you this is the reason why you asked.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, because you're still part of that patient.
okay,
So it's not HIPAA for me to go in and ask the doctor the results of a patient I brought in. He can tell me because I'm part of the patient care.
okay.
There's a line there that keeps going up. Now, where we run into issues is like if I transfer the patient to Casper. You know, we ran a code the other day, brought him back, took him to Casper. I should be able to, within reasonable extent, stop in there and talk to the nurse and say, hey, how's that patient doing that I brought you the other day? And she could tell me, you know, it wouldn't be a violation of HIPAA. If I call up there and say, hey, this is Jim, I brought that patient up to you, they can't tell who it is over the phone. So they're not gonna give me any information. That makes sense?
Mhm.
You know, if that nurse somehow remembered me from the other day. Compared to, you know, the thousands of other medics she's seen come in, probably not 1,000, but at least 10. So, yeah, so there's a certain thing that, especially for training purposes. So like, if we take, STEMI, which you guys will learn about later on, cardiac, it's a massive, it's a myocardial infarction where there's evidence on the 12 lead that they're having it. And we take them up and to the cath lab in Casper and they unblock it. And the guy does fine. Didn't go into cardiac arrest. He was alive and well when we brought him up there. He's alive and well days later. They send us a report that shows what the blockage looked like before and what the blockage looked like, or what the heart looked like after it was fixed. You will actually see pictures of that in this class. But they share those with us because it's vital for training and we're all within the chain of command there, or chain of custody there, if you will. So yeah, there's going to be times where we do get feedback and we find out what's happening. Probably 70 to 80% of the time, I'll drop the patient off and never know what happened to them, even in my own hospital. And it's not because, you know, I can't find out. It's like most of the time I just don't care. I mean, and that sounds cruel, but it really, once I dropped that patient off, I got into the hospital fine. And unless it was something serious, I put it out of my mind already. I've gone on to the next patient. You know, I'm thinking about the next patient. If it's something that's serious that, hey, we can learn something from this, yeah, I'll ask about it. And be able to bring about closure to my own thought process, if you will. Now, good questions. Anything else? Going else? Going twice? All right, cool. All right. All right, I think we're gonna finish up, guys. Casey, Pat, and Rudy. You got the,
Pat Evans.
yeah. We got all three of them. All right, so we got you guys down on our sheet, so we'll get you put in for continuing education. Any questions from you guys or comments? Anything you want to add?
Nope. Thank you.
No, I'm good. Thanks, Jim.
All right,
I'm good. Thanks, Jim.
all right, you guys have a good night. Be safe.
You too.
Hopefully it stops the recording too. Say stop recording. Oh, didn't.